So we have a extremely special guest with us, Mr. Nader, also referred to as Diamond Hands. And you've already been on Fireside, so you kind of understand a little bit of the chaos that is us. I'd also like to introduce Mr. Stefan Gass, and of course, the renowned Kat Cohen, who has hosted a few DeSo parties before you even got to meet her, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So just to kind of break the ice and jump through some things, like you're everywhere right now. I mean, you're on national TV, and which is huge in the crypto space because most of the people on national TV have no idea what we're talking about. So now you're amongst friends, and we really want to talk, a little bit about like where you're at today. You've rebranded a little bit with Diamond, and you're getting a lot of traction. So just, give us a quick overview of DeSo, how you built it, and what issues you're trying to solve today.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for having me, Jay and Kat. Thank you guys for all of this. This is wonderful. Just to give you guys a little bit of background. So DeSo, it's short for decentralized social, and it's a blockchain that's custom built to support social applications. So Bitcoin, is a blockchain where you send and receive money. DeSo is a blockchain that supports more advanced things like you can create a profile, or you can make a post, or you can follow people. And all of that stuff's actually stored on chain. All of that data is stored on chain. And what's interesting about DeSo compared to all the other blockchains that are out there is it's really the only one that can actually handle the storage requirements of that social content. So any other blockchain, the most advanced ones out there, whether it's Avalanche, Solana, or whatever, it costs about $1 to really do anything, even something as simple as a like or a follow, because that data, that little tiny amount of data you need to store for a like or a follow is pretty expensive on all the blockchains that are out there today. There are a lot of reasons for that, but it really comes down to we built DeSo custom from the ground up to support the storage and indexing requirements of social. And so we allow nodes to have tens of terabytes of disk and actually use them efficiently. There's like probably 100xer in just how we store everything on disk to make it efficient. And so it's the only blockchain we think today is equipped to be able to actually power social media applications. And that's really exciting because we think with DeSo, we can finally move from just disrupting financial applications, which has been huge, like DeFi, to actually moving to disrupting social, which is really exciting. That's a high level, Jay.
I want to start with the fact that there's a lot going on in the blockchain space. I mean, you have cryptocurrencies, we have NFTs, we have decentralized finance, and then, all the gunk that goes all over it. And so social, it's prevalent across everything, but you like to do your own chain. And that's where I know Mr. Goss wants to dive in a little bit as well. Talk to us about the reasoning behind a dedicated chain versus utilizing, a layer two, even a layer two on something else.
Yeah. So doing our own chain all comes down to cost. So when I looked at, when I started this project in early 2019, looked at all the blockchains that were out there, near Avalanche, Solana, there were like a dozen others, looked at every single one and kind of felt, wow, none of these are really going to be able to store the terabytes of data and actually index it so you can actually query and say, okay, well, who am I following? Like simple queries like that are very difficult if you don't custom build around them. Just really felt like if I went to build on any of these chains, we were going to quickly fill them up and congest them, and it was going to start costing not just $1 per like or a follow, which is like what it is today on all of them, which is quite high, but it could be like tens, hundreds of dollars like it is on ETH very soon. So that's the reasoning there.
I'll take a $10 gas fee on ETH right now any day.
Yeah, I know. I today did just a basic transfer and it was $75. Like what? Wow, that's a lot. But it's actually a problem that's still not solved in terms of actually storage, because social media applications need so much more storage than financial applications. Like when you have a financial application, you just need kind of a few balances and you can do everything you want to do. And you don't need to store the transactions. You can kind of archive those or put those somewhere else. But really for social, everything like your posts actually have to be on chain. And that's it's a 10xer right there. So so that's why I built our own chain, is so that we can actually store all of the social media content, so the follow graph, the posts, the profiles. But then you might ask, oh well, why does that matter, right? Why does it matter that for example, why don't you have all the posts and profiles like off chain, and then maybe you just do money stuff on chain. So you can totally do that. But there are some really interesting things that happen when everything is on chain. So the first is that all of the content, that content fire hose, is shared by all of the apps that build on top of DeSo. So for example, today there are over 100 apps building on the blockchain. So there's diamondapp.com, which is very popular, but there's also supernovas.app, there's polygram.cc, which is an NFT marketplace, nfts.zone, another one. And what's really cool is that a post on any one of these apps shows up in all of the others. And that kind of, like distribution, that really comes from the fact that we're all building on a common database, which is this layer 1 blockchain. And it's very difficult to do that. Rather, blockchains are kind of designed for it. That's really what it is this single database that we all write to and read from. And so, this kind of really turning content into a utility, something that anyone can build on. And when one app, posts, it shows up in all the other apps. I think that's a really, really important thing. And that's why we're kind of, we call it on-chain maximalists. So we believe you should put as much on-chain as you can. And then aside from that, when you have a blockchain and all the content is on the blockchain, essentially all you need is for one app to be successful, for one app to generate a lot of profiles with a lot of posts, it kind of gets some traction. And then again, all of that's usable by all the other apps. And that really only happens when we're all writing to the same database. And so it creates this kind of it's like anti-fragile. Like if there's one app that wins, all the other apps win. So it's like asymmetric in that sense.
Yeah, I want to loop back on the vision, actually. So what I really love about the DeSo side is just the portability, right? Where if I'm on Facebook right now and I've spent the last, 8 years building my group of friends and my followers, et cetera, and then Facebook screws me over by changing the algorithm, banning me, et cetera, I'm just kind of out of luck, right? But with what you're building, right, it's like, I'm like, oh, you're mad at me, Facebook? Well, I couldn't care any less because I'm just going to switch to whatever new app is out there or whatever dozens of apps or whatever. If I don't like the algorithm, right, I think they're too Republican or too Democrat, I can just switch to someone who displays it differently. So I think that if you can talk more about that dynamic, that's my favorite part, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly the benefit of putting all the content on the blockchain. So just to go back for context, right, Facebook, TikTok, and obviously Instagram and Twitter, all of these have a business model where they basically don't let anyone else build apps on top of their data. They make it so that you have to use the apps that they created, the one or two apps that they made and the one or two kind of feed algorithms that they've created. And the reason for that is if they allowed anyone else to build an app on top of their data, then they wouldn't be able to show ads to those people. They don't control that real estate. And so that hurts their bottom line to have other people building on the content. And so what ends up happening is you have lock-in. So we all have to use these kind of handful of apps from these three companies, and we don't really get competition and innovation in the apps. It's kind of like, oh, if Instagram decides to hide the number, everyone goes crazy, even though that's so basic. And if you allowed anyone to build, then people could build different interfaces that don't show the number of likes or something like that easily. You just have that. It'd be like, why do we even, why is this what this one company decides what we all have to deal with? And so really, DeSo is about instead of having one database and only one company that can build on apps on top of it, it's actually it's still one database, but it's globally open and anybody can build on top of it, which is the DeSo blockchain. And so now instead of having just Instagram's data and Instagram's app, and that's the only app that can be built on top of it, it's actually everyone owns their data and thousands of apps can be built on top of it. So just to give you an example, in other countries, like let's say India or Russia or something like that, someone can build apps that are local to those countries that build off of the same fire hose, but expose the content in native ways that are actually tailored to that population, what they want to see, versus what it is today, which is ultimately India and places like that use Twitter. They use the same apps built in Silicon Valley, even though they could be using experiences that are much more customized, much more tailored, if the data was open and anyone could build on top of it. And if we could move away from, having to show ads, and that being the core business model, which drives that centralization.
So on that same metric, I want to talk about decentralization versus centralization because I completely wholeheartedly agree with the fact that you did your own chain because dealing with some of the projects that I deal with, there's always the issue of, you've got a chain for one thing. Now we've got to host images, videos, and everything else. And unfortunately, it just keeps coming back to like, you have to go to S3, which, or some sort of centralized hosting because blockchain video and content hasn't gotten there yet. But you're actively getting that working inside your chain. So you're solving multiple problems at once. But how do you keep a decentralized, blockchain like DeSo decentralized and avoid some of what future apps may try to centralize that data and not tell people, basically how do you keep it in that direction to make sure people understand when they're using an app that their data is all going on chain?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so storage on chain has been solved by, like things like Filecoin and Arweave, and they're like, oh, we store things, right? But the problem is that the way that they store that index all of that, it's not really something that can power a social network. It's kind of just like throwing it somewhere and just not really like, they don't have good ways to like query it and actually like build social apps on top of it. It's extremely, it's just really not built to be something that we built the future of social on. And so with us, so it's not so much about how do we store things in a decentralized way. Like that's not really that's not really fundamentally what we solve. What we solve is how to actually create a blockchain that stores and indexes everything so that it's still decentralized. And when you run a node, you can actually get all of the data and answer queries that people basically want to do over that data that they can use to build social apps. And so it's really kind of custom driving it towards that use case and making it really fast and really available and really easy to build on. And I think that's why there's been over 100 apps building on it. But to answer your question, I don't think it's actually that hard to have to maintain decentralization while storing a lot of data. And I wouldn't claim that we are uniquely solving that. But what is hard is to do it in such a way that you can still build apps on top of it without basically waiting, hours and hours to do simple queries and things like that. And that's why DeSo is so interesting as this kind of like custom built for these specific use cases so that it can actually scale to millions and eventually a billion users.
That's fabulous.
And also to answer your question, just like to go back to like images and content, another thing that you can do with DeSo if you want to host an image on Arweave or Filecoin or something like that, you can actually do that. You just basically, DeSo supports posts and links to the images. And so you just put the image link to Arweave in there, and now it's fully decentralized. And most of the NFT artists, do that 100% of the time, which is really cool. Right. And then you get the benefit of DeSo's indexing. But if you want to use Filecoin's, storage, you can do, or Arweave storage, you can do that.
You said the word NFT, so now here comes Kat.
Well, I have so many questions for you, Nader, and thanks for coming on. And that did just sort of shift me to NFTs, but I want to ask you about the coin as well. So I've been buying NFTs on DeSo, sort of the OG projects, as I tend to do because I like to collect archaeological NFTs. So if I want to show them in let's say my OpenSea wallet, how can I do that? Or can I do that? So I bought like a Chixel, and which apparently the community is telling me you need to buy a Chixel. There's only 21 of them.
Super OG, yeah.
Very OG. And some Spookies and some Decimon. And since I'm an NFT collector, how would I aggregate everything in one place?
Yeah, so what's interesting is I have the benefit of actually knowing the OpenSea founder and talked to him for a while. They are going, their vision is to integrate all blockchains into OpenSea. Like OpenSea is a marketplace that shows you NFTs on multiple blockchains today. Ethereum, I think they also do Polygon, maybe one or two others. And they're really excited to integrate DeSo. Like, they're going to do it. It's going to be on their roadmap probably for next year. And so it will happen that, you can actually see your DeSo NFTs on OpenSea. You can't do that today only because they haven't done the work to do it yet. But what people are building in the community, so I think Mubs, if you look at Mubs, he's on Diamond, Mubashar, I forget how to say his full name because I know him as Mubs. But he's actually building an app that allows you to showcase and play with your DeSo NFTs. And so, he can integrate your ETH NFTs into there, and that can become a unified place in the reverse direction. DiamondApp.com is very popular, and I know Zordon has thought about allowing you to integrate your ETH NFTs into your profile, right? Because it's inherently social, and if it's social, there's no reason to not have your NFTs from your other places show up there. There have even been plans to, so DeSo has its own wallet. It actually doesn't use MetaMask. It uses an in-browser embeddable wallet, which is has a huge benefit of not requiring users to install a Chrome extension. And also, if you don't want to memorize 12 words, it does a Google Drive backup that kind of hides that from you if you want. And so it's one-click cross-device, super awesome. But anyway, there's even been talk of integrating ETH stuff, ETH transactions, ETH everything into the DeSo wallet and giving that convenience, that 10x of convenience over MetaMask in the DeSo wallet itself, because that is a superpower that DeSo has. So it's coming is the short answer. And I think, you'll start to see more and more integration. But it's just so early that, people are busy. The OpenSea guys have a lot to do. And I'm sure Zordon with Diamond App has a lot to do. So.
And there's nowhere near enough developers or programmers in the blockchain space to even fractionally take care of the amount of growth that we're experiencing.
Yeah, so my other question was really about the coin itself, because I think when we had dinner a couple months ago, you had talked about it, that it was going to be listed on Coinbase before the end of the year. And also the price of the coin, since I've been on the platform since the beginning, and it was, I think when I got in, it was over $100. At one point, it mooned to almost $200, and now I think today it's around $80. So where do you see the future of this coin?
Yeah, so just for the listeners, DeSo, so the DeSo blockchain has the DeSo native cryptocurrency, just like maybe the Bitcoin blockchain has Bitcoin. Again, I know your watchers are super smart, Jay, but just in case, never.
No, you're doing the fabulous thing.
And so Kat's asking about DeSo, the coin, which you can use to do all kinds of things on the apps. Everything, when you buy DeSo NFTs, use the DeSo coin. You can also buy creator coins, which are coins associated with someone's profiles. You can actually invest in people on DeSo, and you use the DeSo coin to make those investments. I own, some Cat and many others, of course. But so to answer your question on DeSo itself, the underlying currency, the next step really is to get it listed on a few actually major exchanges. So the ones we're working most closely with are Binance and Coinbase. And it's coming, but I signed NDAs with them, so I can't actually say anything about how that's going or whatever. But it's a top priority, and it's going to happen, very soon, and I'm really excited about it. We're making really good progress on both of them.
What are the just again without I'm not a discussing price type of guy, but what are the tokenomics? What is the supply? Is it inflationary, deflationary? How did you come up with the metrics around this? Because building your own chain is hard enough. Making your own currency is.
So DeSo's pretty interesting. So the currency itself, DeSo, is fixed supply. So there's no more than 10.8 million that are ever going to be printed. And so 10.5 million has been printed today. And there's another 300K for mining right now. It's still proof of work, and it's transitioning to proof of stake, which is another really big thing that we're hoping happens before the end of the year. But basically, the 10.8 million is the kind of max supply, and the founding team has 2 million allocated across them. And the other 8.5 million was actually crowd-sold through what we call a bonding curve mechanism, where basically you could send Bitcoin to this treasury wallet, and you would get DeSo for that. So and it was at a increasing price. And so the other 8.5 million DeSo was sold through that crowd sale mechanism, generated about 5,000 Bitcoin, which now funds the project, which is really exciting. And what's cool about that is it's actually fairly distributed. So nobody got more than 5% of the supply through that mechanism. So there's even today, I don't think anyone owns. I can't know for sure, but I don't think anyone owns more than 5% of the supply. So it's super distributed. And there were over 44,000 purchases through that mechanism. So we actually got a fairly wide base of people who hold DeSo and are therefore excited about the future of the project. And since then, I'm sure it's proliferated since DeSo, it's listed on blockchain.com and Ascendex. And we're just gonna, 1000x that distribution with a big listing, which is why it's such a high priority. But yeah.
That's amazing. And so, obviously with a supply of 10 million, which is very low and, normal, we won't talk about, dog meme coins, but, as far as other projects, they do generally stay right around that, billion or hundreds of millions. It's just more the tokenomics of like, do you see, kind of going down and speaking of DeSos and less of a DeSo coin and more of like, Satoshis or sats, or what's the lingo that you guys are kind of focused on for the next few years?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one DeSo coin is currently worth about $75. So you can do the math and it comes out like 700 million like market cap or something like that. And I think, if you compare it to other chains, there's actually a lot of room because, social is a really big category that I really think no other blockchain can even approach right now because just the like costs $1, on Avalanche, Solana, all these other things. And we have this great blog post on deso.org/blog. You can go read. You can read exactly how much it costs, and it's like $80 to store a gigabyte on DeSo, and like how many hundreds? It's like just like a lot of money on like every other chain. There's a nice graphic that explains it. I should have that number ready to go. But you get the idea. And so, but to your point, $75 for an individual coin is actually like psychologically, we think it's not optimal because people, we kind of want people to feel like owning a coin is very easy. And so we think a better target for like a single DeSo coin in terms of how much it's worth is like $1. Because, that just makes, it's kind of silly. It doesn't really change anything about like the fundamental economics. But when, your coin is like worth $1, we think it just gets people like more excited, like, oh, it's cheap, whatever. Like they just feel like they can own more of it. And so we're actually contemplating a split of DeSo, a 1-to-100 split, so that each coin, instead of being worth $75, would be worth like 75 cents. And again, that's purely psychological. It doesn't change anything about like underlying economics, as you know. But to your point, it's something that might
and that's a very interesting point. And because again, we do all sorts of projects. Stefan here probably has 20 different chains he's going to launch in the next few minutes in his head. So we really want to having that high number. I think it sounds very like, hey, we're going to do the Bitcoin type thing. But then you're right. You deal with the like, well, I only have 3 of these coins and I don't want to spend them all because I think they're going to be worth something in the future. So that was always my curiosity does it hurt adoption when people are like, these are really scarce? So that's interesting to hear that you have that metric there. Kat?
What about the people who already bought their DeSo with Bitcoin or Ethereum? So they spent that money. Like if you split it, then are they going to be upset?
So they would get, their one DeSo would be 100 DeSo. So theoretically, it shouldn't affect them. Like I said, it changes nothing about.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe now, like for example, for me personally, let's say I have like one DeSo. I don't know if I want to go under that boundary. It's like exact psychological stuff that Jay's talking about. Whereas if it's 100 DeSo, I'm like, oh, okay, one DeSo, I'll throw it here. One DeSo, I'll throw it here. Maybe it's just easier to kind of like part with your money. But I don't know. It's just psychological, and it's just something that's worked for others.
No, I agree.
99 cents instead of $1.05.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change the total number available ever.
Well, it'll 100x it, but you'll also have 100x yourself. So your percentage won't change. Yeah.
So there's no loss in value for the OGs. In fact, some of them will wake up very, very, because again, I would assume that if suddenly people see that distribution, and that's a standard, operating in the stock world, when you do those splits, you do it for the best intentions, like, hey, I need to distribute this. The next thing you know, the thing's back up at $20 because everyone's, wants to see it rise again.
Yeah, there's definitely some anchoring and weird psychological stuff. But again, this is just purely like I just think it's better for the user. You know,
It's
the person who comes in doesn't know anything. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
So yeah,
Stefan, I'm gonna unleash you for a second before I keep going.
Oh, I got loads of questions. Yeah. So one of the things I really want to loop back to is kind of like what your audience is, right? Because I think you have that really interesting space where you have obviously the social network side where you're trying to get my mom to use your network, but you also have the content creator side, which I think have very different needs. I'd love to see like which of those audiences you're really looking for, because I think like the more TikTok creator crowd has a huge appeal to using you compared to TikTok, obviously. So how do you see that? Where's your focus?
Yeah, well, you see, that's actually the beauty of the model, which is that my team is now focusing more and more solely on the DeSo blockchain, which is just kind of this back end that powers everything. And so now all of the most popular apps are run by people who's not my team. So Diamond App is actually not my team. It's this guy Zordan who we funded, and so we have a stake in Diamond App. But he's separate. He makes his own decisions now. He runs his own nodes. We help him out here or there because his code's open source, so we can contribute to it. But it's really, it's not my concern anymore what happens with, or rather, I'm not directly involved in the app layer, as it's said. So that's Diamond. Same with CloutFeed, which is the top mobile app. Same with Polygram.cc, which is probably the #1 NFT platform at this point. There's NFTZ.zone. It's also very popular. So what's interesting is because anyone can build an app, on the DeSo blockchain, those apps can all have different flavors that appeal to different people. So, Diamond is very much a Twitter-like experience. And so, for those Twitter intellectual crowd, like maybe they like that. But there are actually different apps that are building more like an Instagram-like experience. And so Gem is like one of those that's launching. I saw Story, Stori, is an app that's launching. That'll just be completely different. It'll just be very image-based. And there are ones based on videos, all that kind of stuff. And so, like I said, bringing that competition and innovation kind of back to social is what we're trying to do by opening up all the content and making it so that anyone can build on it. And of course, the reason why this can happen with DeSo and not with Facebook is that all that DeSo content is totally open, right? And when you log in on Diamond, when you make a profile on Diamond, you can actually use that in Polygram, or you can use that in CloutFeed instantly, right? And all that money you have, all those NFTs you have, all those posts that you have are there, right? Even all the follows you have are there. And so I think to your point, all those different niches of content, all those people who want a different type of thing, I think can be served and actually much better with that increasing choice of apps that you can use that maybe cater to different people.
So I
totally agree, but don't you have an interesting tragedy of the commons problem there? Because someone's going to have to get those creators to, right? The creators are going to be what really going to draw the audience, I would assume. So do you have like a Netflix-like model where you just start spending a ton of money, like attracting people? But it sounds like you as the blockchain don't, but feels like the apps would have a challenge doing that because, they just get vampire attacked, right? Like somebody spends $100 million in awesome content and poof, it's gone, right? That incentive kind of just lies with you only, right? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think so. So we are funding. So we announced a $50 million fund to fund apps building on DeSo. We also implement referral programs on different apps. So we did a referral program on Diamond just to test out, see how it goes. We're still trying to figure out how to basically fight bots on the referrals so that we can basically give away free money without all of it going to some dude in another country that has a bot farm. So we're still working on that.
Bot farmers need money too. Come on.
Yeah, they do. They got to feed their family of bots. I'm just kidding. So, so high level, definitely when you build on DeSo, we want to fund you and we want to help you grow, by plowing marketing budget into you that you might not otherwise get. So those are externalities that we're okay, hey, we'll help you market just because we can, right? But we really believe that the app, just because you're not building a data moat around your users doesn't mean you can't make good money. And we actually think that the way that this is going to play out and the way we built DeSo is that these apps are going to switch the business model for social media from being based on ads, namely I monopolize all the content so that I can show ads on it. That was the old model. Now it's okay, well, content isn't a monopoly anymore. But there's money flowing through the system in a way that is 1,000x better than it was before because we have these well, it's a blockchain, and so it can do money stuff like investing in a creator or NFTs or something like that. And because now we have this new feature set that's throwing, tens of thousands of dollars around per creator every day, you can now actually have a different business model based on fees, earning fees of those much bigger financial transactions than you had on traditional social. So the hope is that you kind of switch from a business model based on ads, which requires like closing off your content to protect against other people building on top of it, switch from that to transaction fee based, where you don't really care, where the transactions are happening, as long as you can have a fee of it. Or rather, you want transactions to happen on you, but that doesn't preclude, like closing off the content from anyone else, right? So that's kind of how we think about it. And that's kind of the incentive, trying to change the incentive.
So without trying to totally derail the conversation, how do you manage New Yorkers? Like, how are you going to deal with the fact
that does seem like a big derailing of the conversation?
It's a real derailing because everything you're saying is revolutionary. It's needed. I believe that you will absolutely change the world with DeSo, and the thought process is correct. However, in the regulatory world, these people have no idea what you just said. They don't understand the space, and they're again, I'm trying to not go too down the political rabbit hole. How do you manage just the thought process of, oh my God, I can do this so perfectly. Well, I can't do that because that's not.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that we tried. A couple of users tried with their New York credit cards to use fiat, and of course couldn't buy their DeSo, or it was Cloud at the time. And so it's been frustrating for some of the people trying to get on who might not have cryptocurrency, right, to just hook up, just to send in some BTC and ETH.
Yeah, and to clarify, just for everyone watching that may or not be familiar, this is not a DeSo problem. This is a New York Attorney General problem. So hence the ask for that.
Yeah. Kat, I remember that person you told me who had some trouble, and I thought that was a very high-profile person for the crowd. But I think
we spent hours. By the way, we spent hours.
I know. I remember you told me. I felt so bad. And so what you guys are referring to is if you go to diamondapp.com or deso.org, or maybe a couple other apps do it now, you can actually buy DeSo with a credit card. You can also use Bitcoin or Ethereum. And I think what you guys are referring to is basically when you try to buy it with a credit card, we're using Wire, which is like a third party, like they process your credit card and they actually do something with Bitcoin. And then we use that to give you DeSo, like pretty seamlessly, as seamlessly as we can. And their acceptance rate of like, if you go through Wire is something like, I think it's like 60%. It's like pretty low. And if you're in New York, it just doesn't work at all. Right. And so to answer your question, Jay, I mean, we're doing the best we can. So we're actually looking at, we're recommending people try Transact as well as Wire. Transact is like another, like one of these processors. I don't know if they work in New York or anything. But yeah, so we're doing the best we can. I think we're, Diamond and deso.org are basically state of the art. Like if you look at MetaMask, for a long time, it was just Wire, and now they have Wire and Transact. And so we're like, okay, well, maybe we should recommend everyone like also use Transact. But so I think this problem will get solved over time. That fiat rail into crypto is so important, and Wire and Transact are working on it. But then the other way that we solve for it, which is why it's so important, is when you list on a major exchange, like Coinbase or Binance or something like that, right? All those people have, tens of thousands of dollars or something like that, or whatever they have in crypto already. And so if you have DeSo listed there, then they can just so easily buy it, even if they're in New York. So I hope, Kat, that like in the future, it's like, hey, just buy it here, or like, oh, you have Coinbase, right? Open it up, and like just buy some. And that's hopefully much easier.
Because like I said, you guys are bleeding edge. I mean, truly bleeding edge of the social technology. And so, getting the fiat on ramps, no one solved. Like that's a problem that everyone's dealing with. So it's not unique to you guys by any means. But when you're talking about kind of being so far out, how does it, when you're trying to talk with some of the larger adopters, and Kat's saying she's got high profile people and you're so new, Like, and it changes so quickly. Like, what's that like to have to take these calls from people saying, I want to use your platform. What's a blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, again, it really depends on who the person is, and then they can have a different touch point. So, for example, Stephen, you mentioned that, like, Stefan, you mentioned that there's like different audiences. There's like the creator, and then there's the person who like looks at the content. There's actually a third audience, which is like crypto investor people who like, believe in the mission, but maybe don't want to use the product. And I think, again, it comes back to different property on the internet for each person. So for the crypto investor, deso.org explains this is the blockchain and this is like why it's better and like, why it's the only thing that can power social. So deso.org is the destination if you're curious about the blockchain. But if you go and use diamondapp.com, if you even just look at that landing page, it's completely mainstream. I mean, it doesn't mention DeSo until like the end of the like landing page or something like that. And so, when I talk to big creators, when I'm, giving a pitch, we pitch CAA and all this kind of stuff. And then CAA, by the way, holds a lot of DeSo. CAA is one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. But I pitch them Diamond, and I pitch them Polygram, and I pitch them CloutFeed, I don't make them worry too. I tell them about the DeSo and how when you make a post on Diamond, it shows up in CloutFeed. And they think that's really, really cool that like it really helps them understand that they own their content. But it's not required in order to use Diamond because there's just so many, it's like use it like Twitter, but you can also buy NFTs, get tips, or, invest in people, right? And so there's like kind of a mainstream, approach where you go through an app that maybe doesn't focus on the blockchain. Or a like, hey, you're a crypto investor. You should learn about like this technology and why it's so interesting.
So I have a question about in trying to prevent rug pulls, right? So I had
deep question.
Yes, I had an experience last week. I was on a Zoom call, so I was not doing my own research, not doing my own due diligence, and I saw a new user who was liking my posts and aped in. Bought a bunch of coins. Other people, I guess, were watching at the moment. I'm still on the Zoom call, so I was like kind of doing it on the side, not paying it as much attention as I should have. But the coin went from $11 to $555. So, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm going to take some chips off the table, took some chips off the table. And then I started getting flooded with messages. Do you know this? Is this guy verified? I'm thinking, well, he's not verified on Twitter. And he's not verified here, so no, I don't know. So I left some coins in, and then realized this guy. I started messaging the guy on Telegram and on Twitter. I'm trying to find out if this is real, and didn't get a response. So I pulled all my coins out right after the guy rug pulled. And then I got a lot of backlash on, from the community and saying, that I was misleading people. And I just thought, oh my gosh, of course I'm not misleading people, but how can you really prevent this? Because there's somewhat of the, the unknown when you invest in someone's coin.
Before Nader answers this, I just need to say, Stefan and I deal with like crazy tokenomics and rug pulls all day long. Kat, you just made my brain hurt for what you're trying. Like now there's like, I got to worry about like legitimate people. This is insane. So please go on. But like, holy cow, it's amazing to think of the kind of unknown changes when you have a chain like this.
And I made a profit, by the way, but then I was sort of vilified for making that profit, and I felt terribly for other. I wasn't even watching who else was putting their money in, but there's definitely that risk of people just coming on, pretending to be someone, jacking the coin up, and then pulling.
Definitely. And just for context, again, because maybe a lot of people haven't used DeSo apps before, not all the apps support this. I think like Polygram is just NFTs, and a bunch of them don't have this feature. But the feature that Kat's talking about is the ability to invest in somebody. So when you go on diamondapp.com, which is a DeSo app, they're using a particular feature of the DeSo blockchain, which allows you to, after you create your profile, to have a coin associated with that profile that anybody can buy and sell. Right. And what's interesting about that is it's all algorithmic. So when you buy, you are putting money in, putting DeSo into the profile, and you're getting some of their coin, and you're pushing the price up a curve. Basically, it's called a bonding curve. So as you buy, you push the price up, you lock money in. When you sell, you push the price down, you unlock money. So, but really, all you have to know when you use it is one number. You say, how much do you want to buy? Okay, here's the price you're going to get. And that price goes up as more people buy, and then money goes into the profile. And when you sell, you're unlocking that money and going back down. So the short of it is, if you're one of the first to buy, then a lot of people buy after you. If you sell, you make money, and that's kind of what Kat's talking about. Is people who buy a lot, or rather, someone makes a fake profile, buys a lot of their own coin, gets a lot of people to invest in them, and then sells. And that pushes the price down a lot. And that's called a rug pull, because you kind of pulled the rug out from under everybody. So anyway, just to give that context to everybody about what Kat's talking about. There's a few things to talk about. The first is that, scamming, on an app like Instagram or in traditional social media seems to have, it's bad, but it's actually much worse when you involve money, because now someone can actually scam you out of real money, and it's kind of the dark side, because on the one hand, people make a lot more money when you're money native and you have things like NFTs and coins, all that stuff. You can make so much more money, but it's also riskier because you can lose some money, right? Lose real money, and so that's a delicate balance. On the one hand, I've seen some founders say they want to make an app that's only verified profiles that you can buy and sell. So actually, I think Gem is a mainstream app that's going to launch next year, or maybe late this year, that allows you to buy and sell creators, but they're only going to show you profiles that they know are real. And so that's one way to solve that problem. But it also kind of makes it harder for a smaller creator who's producing good content, who maybe didn't get recognized by the moderators of that app, to get investment, right? And so it's a trade-off. So I think diamondapp.com makes the trade of, we'll just show everybody, and if there's no check mark, then we don't know who they are, and you should be very, 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 very careful. And people still lose money because it's tricky. It really is tricky. Someone makes something that looks very compelling, but ultimately, again, maybe the beauty of it is that each app gets to make its own decision about how it lets you buy and sell. So Polygram says, we're not dealing with coins. We're just going to show you NFTs because that's what we want to do. Gem is like, okay, well, we want to do coins, but we want to only show verified. And I think ultimately, kind of the market will decide, where that level I think they'll all exist and they'll all be popular. But Diamond might get a reputation for being a more do your own research kind of place, whereas Gem, it's kind of like I can put my mom on this, and then it's not really a problem. That's kind of how I think about how it's going to get solved, is really that app layer. The market kind of pushes people towards the apps that are making the best choices.
So on that note, I'm just going to throw up on screen real quick. So here's our yWhales, profile on BitClout, and I'm going to say I'm also strange. I just prefer BitClout. I like the the really very analog, ASCII art looking thing here. And so please, everyone, go ahead and follow yWhales if you're interested. But I find the tokenomics around it, just fascinating. The tokens increase over time. Is that correct?
If people buy, the price increases. If people sell, the price decreases.
But the coins does the coins in circulation change?
Yes, it does. So when you're buying, you're actually printing coins and locking money in the profile, so you're inflating a bit. Okay. When you sell, those coins are actually burned, and you're taking money out. Okay. So it's a bit confusing from that angle, but it allows all of this is oriented around making a buying decision be just one number. If you push buy, you'll see it's just tell me how much you want to buy. Okay, this is how many coins you're going to get. And there you go. Actually, there you go. Yeah. So you could say put in $10 and it'll tell you okay, I'm getting Yeah,
Sorry,
see how
sorry,
easy it is. It's just getting this many coins, and that's the price. So it's just super easy. And that's why all the
Does the money go to the creator,
like
or who does the money go to? Does it just
Yeah.
get escrowed effectively, or does it go somewhere?
No. So the money is locked in the profile to support selling. So the idea is that when you're buying, you're locking money, and that'll actually be there when you go to sell. So for an account, if you bought $100 and then immediately sold it, you would get, let's say about $100 worth of coins. You got one coin and then you sold it. You'd get exactly what you put in. So it's symmetric, going up and down, up and down. But one interesting thing that you can do as a creator, and most creators do this, is they have what's called a founder reward or a trading fee. So most creators set their fee to 10%, meaning that they get 10% every time someone buys their coin. And a lot of creators have made like over $100,000 or more on this, just to show you how, when you have like a money kind of oriented business model, it can be
So you're saying I should take mine down from 50%?
That's probably hurting your investment. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
10 is common.
All right, we'll change that to 10. So as long as I got this on the screen, let's talk about this big guy right here, Mr. Musk,
right?
Who's not on the platform. Clearly, he is
right.
one of the top coins that's out there. So he's got 309 in circulation compared to my 27. What's your vision for or how do you deal with the fact that he's not on here? He's not posted. There's a lot of money locked up in him. What does that mean to you?
So actually, Jay, if you keep that screen up for a second there, I just want to show the viewers one thing, which is that if you go to the posts tab there, just go, you see how there's creator coin, posts. So you can see what the people are seeing is basically there's an Elon Musk profile on BitClout, which is an app that's built on DeSo. So there's Diamond app, but there's also BitClout. There's over 100 now, and we're funding even more. But Elon's profile is reserved. That means that you can actually already buy and sell a coin associated with that handle, that Elon Musk handle, but he's not actually on there yet. And this was a very interesting decision that we made when we launched BitClout. So BitClout was an app that my team actually launched. It was the first prototype kind of thing on DeSo. Since then, there's a lot of apps that we don't run, like Diamond and all that kind of stuff. But we put basically the top 15,000 profiles from Twitter. We loaded them onto the DeSo blockchain, their handles, and actually their pictures as well, and allowed people to trade them. And we said, if those people want to come and claim those profiles for their own, those handles, then they can tweet out, there's basically a button they can push to tweet out, I'm claiming this profile, and it embeds their public key in there. And they can actually claim that profile, they claim that handle and that account, and they also claim a few coins that we bought for them when we created the profile. So if you look at Elon, for example, and you click on his creator coin, he actually has, that's his cap table, that's all the people who own Elon. You can see he actually has about $900,000 in his own coin waiting for him when he joins. So it's an incentive. And so this was a big growth hack we did. It was also intended to kind of prevent squatting and impersonation of these names, trying to get people eased into this has a clock next to it, which means it's reserved. This has a check next to it, which means it's verified. So that's just an interesting thing. And the vision for it is that everybody claims, their profile and gets some money out of it. Maybe they don't sell all at once like a rug pull, but they sell over time. That's something almost everybody does. There's been like one exception I can literally think of where someone rug pulled their profile after claiming.
It must be clear, most of the time it was probably a mistake. They didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Just go, oh my God, there's money here. How does this work? And it's still sitting out there.
Yeah.
So you've been very clear that the information can be shared everywhere. What happens when I'm an active user and an app I do not agree with wants to post my contents? How do I prevent myself from being on the opposite political party that I have no interest in participating in, or the content creator that I just is doing nothing but tearing me apart? And I understand it's public, but to exclude from them being able to profit off me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you're kind of hinting at this problem of moderation, and that problem is probably one that I've thought more about than basically everything other than the tech. Probably, if it's tech, I've maybe thought a little bit more about. But yeah, our view on it is very different from what exists today. So today, we basically rely on Facebook to police the vast majority of like what we see online, right? And what's interesting is we really don't have any transparency into like when misinformation is spreading. We kind of rely on Facebook not only to police it, but also to detect it, which is a problem because they're not really aligned to detect it. In fact, often they make more money, allowing, really fake news to spread and to like, get more clicks and make people spend more time there. And so the first step is, the first big breakthrough with DeSo on the positive side is that when all of the content is stored on a blockchain, all of the follows, the posts, replies, yada, yada, you can actually do a much better job of detecting the spread of misinformation so that you at least know that it's happening. So you can have the best machine learning researchers in the world, regardless of what country they're in, analyze the blockchain and say, hey, did you notice? They can publish a blog post and say, hey, did you notice these pockets of users that are doing this weird stuff that's like clearly not real media, like it's fake. And so, and also, by the way, the person who did that at Facebook, who produced these charts that ended up in Congress against Facebook, actually wants to work with us. So I'm actually, literally today, I'm making him an offer. Yeah, he thinks it's so important that we actually, do a good job of analyzing all of this data on DeSo and reporting about it. And yeah, we're going to do so much fun stuff with him. And I think really push forward this, something we couldn't do before, which is transparently, analyzing and having a conversation about what is happening in these graphs, these like graphs of social information. So, and so, yeah.
Kat was ready for something.
I was going to ask how you are planning to compete because Aave had announced that they were coming out with a decentralized social media platform. I'm sure DeSo won't be the only blockchain that is supporting one. So, what does that look like? Do you know anything about the competition and so what's upcoming with that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kat. I mean, so I haven't seen any serious layer one blockchains that are tackling social. It really like, I don't like to say this because you say it and then, tomorrow something launches or something that you didn't know about. But DeSo is really the only game in town that can handle the social media use case. There's nothing else. Every other blockchain, even the most advanced ones, I think just $1 for a like or a follow is not going to work. And DeSo, it's like 10,000 times. It's like nothing, and it's going to stay that way. And so,
hey, on the dollar, let me quickly ask you that because like Solana transaction fees are tiny. Like, how does it end up being $1? Just because storage is so much more expensive? Because it's not a transaction fee problem, right?
Exactly. So, see, you're hinting at something very important, which is that not all transactions are created equal. And so, in a blog post we wrote recently on deso.org/blog, it's called what was it called? It was called like Web3 won't scale on smart contracts or something. It talks about how there are transactions that just move money around. Like, let's say like a transaction where I send you money or you send me money, right? That doesn't actually create new data that you have to store. It's just two account balances that are like incrementing and decrementing. And you just throw that, you don't have to keep the transaction. You can just throw it away, which is what all the blockchains do. But if it's something where I make a post, right? That's actually going to require me to store that post potentially forever. Right. And so 50,000 DeFi transactions where we're just sending money back and forth might not actually result in new data that you have to store. Whereas 50,000 posts, it's like tens of megabytes that you have to store suddenly. And so what's interesting with these chains is everybody's talking about transactions per second when, it's just not the right way to think about it. Right. It's really, we call them state neutral transactions where like you're not adding new state, you're not adding new storage. Versus state augmenting transactions where you actually like have to store more data. And so to do social transactions, social media, all of them are state augmenting, follow, like, whatever. They're all actually resulting in new data that you have to store. And that's what costs $1. So, if you try to do 50,000 social transactions on Solana, you'd break it. Like, it just wouldn't work. It would cost you millions of dollars. And if you actually spent that money to do it, you would break it. So
interesting. Just real quick, as I'm just checking in for time-wise, how much longer do we have you for?
Yeah, I can do another maybe 15 minutes if you want, up to 15 minutes.
Perfect. That's where I'm at. So
let me just make sure, actually.
Yeah, you're good. We can take a half a second pause.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. We're good. Yeah,
okay, cool.
We're good.
So we're gonna pivot, go backwards, and then we're gonna go forwards in time here. So the next question I have for you is, what was the precursor to this? What got you so pissed off at social media that you go, screw it, I'm gonna make my own? What was the talk around that?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, something funny, maybe I'll just go in my background for a minute, and because that really does inform, what I work on, what I'm passionate about, which is that, I studied computer science in undergrad. I graduated in 2013. I worked at D.E. Shaw, which is a trading firm, for a year as a quant, trading equities. And I didn't love that. I wanted to be more I kind of wanted to do stuff that people use, and then I kind of see that first order impact that I have. So I went to work at Google. I worked at Google for 2.5 years as an engineer. I worked in ads and I worked in search. But crypto was always my passion. Like in college, in 2011 or 12, I built like a mining machine, mined like 24 Bitcoins, on free campus electricity. It was a great time. And my friend over the semester mined like a whole Bitcoin on his laptop. Like that's how easy it was.
Oh my goodness.
And so, but more than that, I got really into the vision of Bitcoin, of how you can have this money that's like not dependent on anything. I wrote like the first blog posts I ever wrote in college were just Bitcoin, me being obsessed with Bitcoin. And so got really passionate about that. But when the crash happened in 2013, I had a job lined up at this hedge fund, and I'm going to make money, and I can use money to like buy my freedom and work on whatever I want, or whatever was my thinking. And I said, I can't really justify giving up that very safe path to invest in just going into crypto, because it's so it's not clear it's ever going to come back. Like we just didn't know. And so what happened was I did my career stuff, for a while, and then in 2016, woke up to Ethereum. Woke up to like all this stuff that had happened from the last time that I was looking at crypto. And I just got obsessed. I mean, I couldn't do I had to leave Google because I couldn't work at Google anymore. I was spending all my time just learning about all this crazy stuff that happened with Ethereum, with privacy, and then with stable coins, which I got really excited about. And that's a passion, that's just something that just happens to you, and you get really excited about it. So I had this idea for a stable coin, which is it's basically a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, in that you can use it on crypto exchanges. We were going to build it on Ethereum, but it's stable in value. So it's like a digital dollar that you can move between each other as easily as you can move Bitcoin or Ethereum. And so left Google in 2017 to pursue that. And we had a very interesting way to achieve that while maintaining decentralization, which is that it's a stable coin. So it's like a dollar, ERC20 that's worth $1, but it's backed by crypto instead of being backed by dollars in a bank account. And so pursued that very aggressively. I raised $140 million to launch this protocol on Ethereum. Would have been the first really DeFi before DeFi. It was really going to back all of this stuff, because you need a stable coin to do all of these complicated financial derivatives that people were going to do. And what's amazing is it's decentralized in the end. In the end, it's actually this thing that doesn't require the Fed. It's not subject to the same problems of the printing press and all that kind of stuff, which is just so exciting to me that you can do that. But in 2018, the SEC came out and started just aggressively attacking so many things in crypto. And in particular, something that they made clear they were going to attack very aggressively, is people who raised with this document called a SAFT. So it's like a safe, but for coins.
Yep.
And we raised with a SAFT. All the money, 140 million was raised with a SAFT. And all the lawyers we talked to were like, oh, well, you can't launch because your coins will be securities because you raised with a SAFT. And I swear I spent like $8 to $10 million on lawyers, and it was $8 million. And then what happened was ended up realizing, man, there's really no way to do this incredibly exciting business without significant risk that the SEC is going to think that there's securities involved. And meanwhile, a bunch of other approaches to launching a stablecoin came out, like USDC. Tether was growing and growing and growing. And at the end, it was kind of like we could launch a Me Too product. We could launch a compliant dollar-backed stablecoin, but like, really? I mean, I didn't raise $140 million to do that. I raised $140 million to do something that was going to really help people in a different way. And so I made a really hard decision in early 2019 that I was going to return all the money that I raised and say, this doesn't work, and try something else. And it was a very difficult decision. And, that's set the stage, before I went into DeSo. I finished all of that, returned all the money. It's literally $140 million minus like $8 million I spent on lawyers, something like that. And so then early 2019, I have less in savings than when I started. I have like 3 years of runway that I saved up from like Google and D. Shaw. And, I'm like, what's next? Should I just go back to Google because this didn't work out? But I was really, really passionate about doing something that's going to have that level of impact, something that people can really benefit from. I said, I'm going to work for 3 years on trying to find that next thing that's like as impactful as Basis was, that last company was. But be smart about it, not tie myself into like a regulatory knot, and that's what sets the stage for DeSo, right? Because I looked around and people were talking about decentralizing social media. It was very clearly something that I thought should happen, but I wasn't convinced that it was possible, because how do you break these crazy network effects that these companies have? And so I looked at it kind of initially half-heartedly, like, man, this is just never going to happen, never going to make it, NGMI kind of thing. But I started getting excited when I looked at kind of that value prop of, if you have all the content on a blockchain, all these apps can kind of feed off of each other in this interesting way that maybe they can build a network effect together with all the apps that get built all around the world, kind of like Ethereum against the financial system, right? It's similar kind of anti-fragility, of like one app wins and then all the other apps kind of get that data. That was part of it. And then the other thing that closed it finally for me was, from a product side, mixing money and social was something that people had tried in the past. There were products like Steam and Bihoo and Cent and Roll and Rally and all these. And I studied everything that had been done from a product side with money and social. And I really felt like that was such a rich space that was underexplored and could be really brought to a 10x with a blockchain that's kind of dedicated to it, that can actually handle all of that storage and have the posts on chain and do all that kind of stuff. So from a product side and from like not inevitability side, but like asymmetry of like, if one app wins, all the other apps kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger in a snowball. That kind of pushed me, and I said, okay, this is something I'm willing to spend the next 10 years of my life on and see if we can do it. And it's still, by the way, like whatever, maybe low double-digit percentage of success, just like anything that we do. But every day I wake up and I'm like, this is so important. Like, we need to do this. And I think WAGMI, like, we are going to make it. I just believe that so strongly. And
Nader, I cannot even begin to say thank you for sharing that story, because it's absolutely, I had no idea. It's fabulous, fabulous to hear. And I'm sure Kat's going to be geeking out over that for a little bit.
Yeah. So my question also is, like, in terms of where you are right now, what would you say you need help with? What aren't you great at? And where are the gaps right now to propel you into the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question, Kat. I mean, I think the biggest thing in the short term that we're doing with DeSo that's so important is funding the best developers in the world to build apps on DeSo. And we're actually very lucky in that we announced this $50 million fund. And I kind of thought, we're going to get kind of whatever developers who are just looking for the money or whatever. But instead, we got 140 applications, and 40 of them were really good, really and by the way, they were all really good to be honest. But there were 40 that were like, wow, like these guys are like, like Stanford Business School, Harvard Business School, or like, MIT, like really, not that the schools matter at all, but like, I mean, it's just like, these guys are just so serious. They founded other companies and now they want to build on DeSo and stuff like that. And just so many really bright people building on DeSo. And so I think the number one thing we can do is get as many people building apps that they're passionate about with these new primitives, these kind of money-oriented primitives that people haven't really been able to play with before. And so that's what we're doing. So with the developers and getting people excited to build. So if you know any developers who are interested, I mean, this is the next disruption. I really think it's this new feature set of money and social. And aside from that, we're working on, just getting those really premium apps. But if there are people who want to build on the blockchain itself, like want to contribute to the DeSo protocol, that's also really great. So the short answer is developers. Like that's our number one thing to tap into that asymmetry.
And your foundation board.
Yes, that's true.
And your foundation
We're working on
board.
that. Yes.
Well, Nader, I have to say thank you so much for coming on. This has been absolutely a fabulous conversation. We very much appreciate it. Is there any last final minute kind of shout outs or, projects that you just want to give a little attention to that maybe need a little love?
Oh, man. I mean, yeah, maybe I wish I should really have all the top creators. Obviously, Kat's a top creator, but Krasensteins make these great videos on YouTube. If you just want to know what's going on DeSo, they make videos every day. I love them so much. I love everybody on the platform. And aside from that, if you want to look at all the apps that are building on DeSo, there's bithunt.com/explore. That actually just catalogs like a bunch of different apps. My favorites right now are diamondapp.com, CloutFeed is a mobile app, polygram.cc, nftz.zone. DeSoPulse.com is actually like a creator coin trading app, supernovas.app. That's my
awesome.
plug.
You got it. And last but not least, just because, again, you've been on the fireside, you've been on this, we need to turn over and get you one of our new whales that we just launched.
Oh, my goodness. That's so awesome.
Oh, yeah. So these are full 3D metaverse or whatever we're going to be calling it that we don't like Zuckerberg taking our name from us. But yeah, we'll get you one of these, and they come in a gazillion different styles. So we'll get your Ethereum wallet.
Oh my gosh.
And these are our communities. This is what we do for our community. And so we'd love you to be
incredible.
part of it. Yeah, no, they're fabulous.
I just sent you my MetaMask, so
you got it. Well,
oh my gosh, thank you so much, Jay. It means so much.
Oh no, we're thrilled to have it. So thank you so much, and then we'll hold out here and chat for a second. And thank you.